Hi everyone, Rick Yates here from Zedsphere, and I just wanted to make a quick video to bring you this week's results for our coronavirus State of the Industry survey. Now, we had a lot of responses last week, and it's been the same situation again. So thank you so much for that. If you do get an invitation to complete this, if you see it online, please do it this week as well, because the more feedback we get, the better we'll understand what's going on in the industry. So I'm going to jump straight in. I'm going to just share my screen here so you can see what's been going on. Here we go. Let's get that out of the way. Okay, cool. So first off, right, so this first question is about how busy you are this week compared to last week. And this might not be much of a surprise for a lot of you, but last week, the level of busyness was actually higher than the week previous, and that was largely down to people needing remote working facilities really, really quickly. But this week, actually, there's been kind of like 70% of respondents have actually seen a decrease in activity, which is absolutely massive, with 33% saying they're a lot quieter than last week and 40% saying it's slightly quieter than last week. So there's definitely a trend downwards in April, which isn't too much of a surprise, but it's quite interesting to see that how big it has been, considering that despite businesses being closed, people are still working from home and still need IT support. I did add a couple of questions in this week. I actually added 4 questions just based on some feedback that we had. And this one was about customers who have cancelled or paused services with MSPs. So it was really interesting that 42% of IT providers said that they do have customers that have either cancelled or paused services. Obviously that doesn't mean that they've cancelled or paused all services. So there's an assumption that there's still a level of buoyancy there. But the industry really is seeing an impact at the moment, and that's kind of been shown with the results that we've got here. So last week, this was really a 50-50 response. So it was, has your customer requested extra services than what they normally have in their package compared to last week? And the responses from last week said that there was a 50% increase. And so this week it's kind of tipped the balance again, and it's back down to 65% saying no, we haven't had customers that have requested additional services. Now, the thing is, for the customers that are requesting additional services, it really is still linked to remote services. So working from home, setting up VPNs or remote connect solutions, that kind of thing. So there's nothing additional outside of that remote connect scenario, which is really interesting. And I'm going to come on to that discussion in a few minutes around what MSPs can potentially do or what they need to do about that situation. So what have your customers mostly needed from you this week? So 38%, it was still setting up remote working. And 41% has gone up massively to just business as usual. So customers not necessarily needing anything additional from us, but maybe just kind of falling in line with regular service contracts, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a little bit concerning, because in my mind, there should always be an approach to trying to achieve net new business, rather than just be business as usual in a service business. But we can't obviously expect that totally, but I do feel as though that, as time goes on, we're going to need to find ways to create growth for MSPs as we move forward. Just a little addition to this, actually, if you can see here, like there isn't really much other stuff that people are asking MSPs for. So anything about security and compliance of data. I mean, the feedback I'm getting, in my own personal opinion, is that that's going to be quite important, because there's a lot of people working remotely on either personal machines or and that kind of stuff. But that doesn't seem to be a massive priority just yet. But we'll come on to that a little bit more. Now, this is a question that I actually added in, and I really wanted to understand how MSPs can actually lead customers down a road of actually advising them proactively of what they're going to need throughout this crisis, so rather than waiting for our customers to say, oh, we need this or we need that, I think, in order for MSPs to thrive during this time, we're going to really need to take a proactive approach and actually offer guidance. And so I wanted to ask this question around, what do you think your customers are going to need in the next few weeks that they might not already know about? And please select your top three. So activity monitoring software was something that was kind of high on the priority list. Businesses, whilst they've got staff at home, kind of want to know what their staff members are up to in a lot of cases, and so activity monitoring and key loggers is something that seems to be of interest at the moment. Although there hasn't been a demand for it as of yet, I think it's still a little bit early than that. More suitable remote connect and VPN facilities. So that was a really, really high response at 57%. So it looks like people put something in place quite quickly, but as time goes on, they might need something that's more suitable, which is really interesting. We're starting to see a little indication here around kind of like moving physical servers and like data that's on a physical location into the cloud to make it a bit more accessible or better protected. 24% came back with that. But the real kind of winner on this at 61% was proactive guidance and recommendations on IT strategy. And so it's about being able to step into that leadership role for your customers, make sure that you are seen and that you're aware that it's time for you to be kind of like step to the line and be a support for them, even when they might not be coming to you and asking anything specifically. I think there's an opportunity here for MSPs to really kind of grip this and not necessarily sell, but just be of value and be of use. And I think that's something that we can all start thinking a little bit more about right now. Okay, so I was really interested to know about furlough and how many MSPs are placing their staff on furlough. I mean, my concept of the MSP industry is that it's actually 80% of the economy is small to medium-sized businesses. A lot of those businesses are owned by kind of like independent people. They're not owned by big like corporates or anything like that. And that kind of persona tends to delay things like putting staff on furlough or laying staff off. And whilst we've seen kind of like this big dip in activity, it looks here that only 28% of the IT services industry have currently got staff on furlough, and 72% have not taken that step yet. However, this is really interesting data, is if you haven't done that yet, do you expect to place staff on furlough within the next week? Now 10% said yes, but another 31% said I might actually need to do that, I'm not actually sure yet. So there's an additional 40% of the industry that's either going to do it or is thinking about doing it. And I think it'll be really interesting to see the results next week, to see whether these people in the yellow area, whether that's just a little bit of kind of like inertia about not wanting to make that difficult decision, even though it might be the right thing to do. There might come a point maybe around the middle of the month where it's kind of like, oh gosh, like we actually need to do this now in order to protect the business. And I know certainly several companies that have kind of taken a we're not going to wait and see approach to this. I've read a couple of analyst reports that say the IT services industry is going to take the biggest hit out of the IT economy. And I think, just given that it's only week 2 and we've seen quite a downturn in these results, I think that might be the case. Okay, so what kind of advice would you find most useful to help you and your customers' businesses during the coronavirus crisis? Not too different here on compared to the results from last week. I mean, the key things are around keeping staff productive and actually understanding what other businesses are doing right now in the IT services industry. I think that gives some reassurance and understanding as to what's going on, and finding ways to diversify your business. Now, this just goes back to being proactive and taking a leadership role with your customers. I mean, I say this all the time, and if you've ever listened to my podcast, the IT Provider Show, I'm always talking about how as a technology kind of like heritage-based industry, we're not intrinsically sellers. And I think now is the time to really not necessarily become a seller, but make sure that you're seen and getting out there and letting your customers understand what you can offer, and what value it is. And that takes a bit of courage and it takes a lot of proactive focus. But if there's a time to do that, now is the time. And I would really, really encourage that you sit down with your colleagues or your fellow management team members and say, listen, what can we actually offer our customers that's going to be of use to them, whether it's protecting data in the cloud or some kind of additional security that we can provide for them. Now is a good time to do that. Okay, so feel the level of concern around businesses for coronavirus. I mean, relatively similar to last week. I mean, actually, more MSPs this week said they feel like they're going to grow as a result, despite the fact that the earlier results on this survey show that there's been quite a significant downturn in business. So that kind of doesn't really correlate with the results that we've got elsewhere in the survey. The majority of MSPs, around 41%, are saying this is going to have a negative effect, with 9%, which is about the same as last week, saying actually I'm worried that this is going to put me out of business. So interesting results there, and I think it'd be good to keep an eye on those as we go through the week. But I think if you as a business leader can think about, right, how do I move the needle from thinking that this may have a negative effect on my business, there'd been a 30% chance of this having a negative effect on my business, to there being a 30% chance that it's going to have a positive effect. What one thing can you put in place to try and make that happen? Top concerns regarding coronavirus this week are the same as last week, really. Customers not being able to pay me, and there being a shortage of incoming new business. Now, I added an extra question around like what's actually happening around that situation, and I asked, are you experiencing challenges with liquidity and your customers not paying their bills this week? And actually 27% of respondents said yes, I have customers who have asked for extensions or have not paid on time. Now, obviously, we don't know what percentage of their customers have done that, but it's interesting to see that that's happening. 30% are coming back and saying that. What we don't have, unfortunately, is a figure against what MSPs, what kind of numbers MSPs would normally have with bad debt. So if 15% of MSPs, normally have an issue with bad debt, these figures might be skewed slightly. Most businesses will have some kind of issue with bad debt to an extent. So the 27% might not be as bad as we see. It might not all purely be because of coronavirus, but I'm sure that it's making a contribution to that. So that brings the survey results to a conclusion. Some really interesting feedback there. Now, I just want to share with you something else as well. There's a really interesting thing happening here that, we really need to kind of find ways to take advantage of some of the opportunities that this might bring up for us. And so I wanted to let you know about a couple of things. I'm just going to get this screen share on the go. Right, so for those of you that know Nigel over at the Tech Tribe, he's actually put together this really fantastic document called the MSP Owners Guide to Surviving and Thriving in Uncertain Times. And I follow Nigel on LinkedIn, and I know that he kind of worked really hard to put this together really, really quickly at the beginning of this. Now, I've downloaded this document and read it, and there's just some really good common sense stuff in here around what to do. It's almost like a checklist type process with lots of detail and lots of ideas. I would really, really recommend taking a look at this. It's a free resource. Nigel doesn't even require you to put your email address in if you don't want to. So we've put the link for this download at the bottom of this blog page, and I would really recommend just taking a look. You've got absolutely nothing to lose from taking a look at that. I also want to mention now, in times of uncertainty like this, this organization, the Tech Tribe, it's worth taking a look at. I'm fortunate enough to know lots of really, really successful business people, and the one running theme that I've identified with all of them is that they've benefited from high-level executive or business-related coaching and accountability. And I do feel that the Tech Tribe is something that offers that for MSPs. And so, I do feel that, especially at this time, it is worth making the investment into this kind of group. So if you're not familiar with the Tech Tribe or you're not actually involved with it yet, please just do take a look at it, because I know that a lot of MSPs are benefiting from this. And I've met Nigel. I went out for a curry with him and Richard Tubb a couple of years ago, and he's a really, really genuine guy, and I really like his content. So I recommend that you take a look. I'm not involved in this business at all by by the way. I just really think it's a useful resource for MSPs. Something that I also want to let you know about is Richard Tubbs' coronavirus COVID-19 page. Now, Richard's great at putting all the right information in one place, and so I would recommend that you take a look at this as well. It's got loads of different stuff on here about various vendor offers, useful videos, and just stuff that you can use. I'm putting the link for this in the blog page as well, so take a look at that. Something to bear in mind is that we've still got 3 free months on IT Provider Hub. If you can get yourself listed in here free of charge. This is a relatively new site that I created, but we're trying to populate it with as many MSPs as possible now, so that we can drive web traffic to it later in the summer when the economy starts to pick up again, and to try and get MSPs as many leads as possible. So you can get listed here, and it's with waived fees for at least the next 3 months for all MSPs. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. There's loads more stuff that I could probably show you, but I'm going to keep this quite succinct, and we'll make sure we've got resources on our page. I hope you're all safe and well, and please stay positive, look after your loved ones, and fingers crossed, I'll catch you next week for the results of next week's survey, and I wish you all a good Easter. All right, bye for now.